Since the beginning of time, humans have looked at fish with wonder. We see them moving so gracefully underwater through rivers, lakes, and oceans. Yet they never come up to breathe like we do. It's one of the most fascinating differences between humans and sea life. We need air. They live their entire lives surrounded by water. So the question is simple but amazing. How do fish breathe underwater? To understand this, we first have to remember what breathing really is. Every living thing needs oxygen. Humans, animals, even the smallest organisms. Oxygen is what our bodies use to create energy, keeping every cell alive. We humans get oxygen from the air around us, pulling it into our lungs every time we inhale. Fish, on the other hand, live in an environment that seems impossible for us to survive in. Water. But here's the secret. Water also contains oxygen, though in a much smaller amount than the air. The air we breathe is about 21% oxygen, but in water, oxygen is dissolved. It's mixed in tiny amounts between the water molecules. Fish have evolved special organs to extract that oxygen from the water, and those organs are called gills. Gills are the magical filters of the underwater world. They allow fish to take in oxygen from the water and release carbon dioxide, just like our lungs do with air. But they do it in a completely different way. When a fish opens its mouth, water flows in. Then, as it closes its mouth, the water is pushed over thin layers of tissue inside the gills. These tissues are full of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. Oxygen molecules from the water move through these thin walls and enter the blood, while carbon dioxide moves out from the blood into the water to be released. It's a beautiful and efficient system that has been perfected by millions of years of evolution. The shape of gills is also designed for maximum efficiency. Each gill has multiple filaments and lamellae, thin structures that increase surface area, like a sponge or a fan. The more surface area there is, the more oxygen can be absorbed. In fact, a single fish can have thousands of tiny lamellae in each gill, giving it enough surface to pull oxygen even from oxygen-poor waters. This is why fish can survive in environments that might seem completely unbreathable to us.
Different fish species have adapted their gills for their specific environments. Fish that live in fast-moving rivers where oxygen levels are higher can have smaller gills. Meanwhile, fish living in deep or still waters where oxygen is low have much larger gills with more surface area. Some fish can even survive in muddy, stagnant water where oxygen is scarce by developing special behaviors, like swimming near the surface to gulp air bubbles. But not all fish rely only on gills. Some species, such as lungfish, have developed a fascinating ability to breathe air directly. Lungfish have both gills and primitive lungs, allowing them to survive when water dries up. During dry seasons, they can bury themselves in the mud, create a mucus cocoon, and breathe air through a small hole until rain fills the rivers again. It's one of nature's most incredible survival stories. Other fish, like the betta fish or certain catfish, also have similar adaptations. They use an organ called the labyrinth organ, which lets them absorb oxygen directly from the air when water oxygen levels are low. This is why you might see some fish swim up and take quick gulps from the surface. They're not just playing, they're breathing. Fish also adjust their breathing rate based on how active they are. When swimming fast or escaping predators, they open their mouths more often, letting more water pass over their gills. When resting, they slow down to conserve energy. It's similar to how humans breathe faster during exercise and slower when we're relaxed. Temperature and water quality also play huge roles in how fish breathe. Warm water holds less oxygen than cold water, which means fish in tropical regions have to work harder to breathe. Pollution can also clog or damage gills, making it difficult for fish to absorb oxygen. That's why clean, healthy water is so essential for all aquatic life. The way fish breathe is not only about biology, it's also about balance. Nature has designed a perfect system where every breath,
Every drop of water and every heartbeat are connected. It reminds us that the world underwater is a delicate ecosystem, finely tuned for life. A small change in oxygen levels or temperature can affect everything living in it. Imagine for a moment if humans could breathe underwater the same way fish do. We'd no longer need scuba tanks or oxygen masks. We could simply dive and stay there, breathing naturally through the water. Another fascinating thing about gills is that they show how evolution adapts life forms perfectly to their surroundings. Millions of years ago, some fish developed the first primitive lungs and eventually moved on to land, becoming amphibians and later reptiles and mammals. That means, in a way, our lungs are distant relatives of fish gills. Different shapes, but the same purpose: to bring oxygen into the body and release carbon dioxide. This link between land and sea life shows how connected all living things really are. So next time you watch fish swimming peacefully in a tank, a river, or the sea, remember that every movement of their gills is a breath of life. Each tiny flicker of those red tissues is the result of millions of years of perfect adaptation. While we breathe air, they breathe water, and both of us depend on the same precious element, oxygen. It's a reminder of how beautifully complex life on Earth can be. Every creature, no matter how simple it looks, hides systems and mechanisms that are far more advanced than they appear. Fish may look quiet and effortless, but inside, they are running one of the most efficient breathing systems ever created. In the end, the secret of how fish breathe underwater is not magic. It's the power of evolution, biology, and balance. Their gills are masterpieces of design, able to capture life from something we could never breathe. They show us that life finds a way in every corner of the planet, from the highest mountain air to the darkest ocean depths. And that's the beauty of nature. Every living thing, big or small, has its own unique way to survive, adapt, and thrive in the world it calls home. Even though we can't breathe underwater like fish, we can still learn from them about efficiency, adaptation, and balance. They remind us that our world is full of hidden systems working in perfect harmony. So the next time you look at the calm surface of the water, remember that beneath it lies a world full of life, a world that breathes just like we do, only in a different way. And that's how fish manage to breathe underwater, through an incredible system that reminds us how perfectly nature adapts to every environment. It's amazing to think that beneath the calm surface of a lake or ocean, millions of tiny exchanges of oxygen are happening every second, keeping entire ecosystems alive. The ocean has always inspired curiosity and respect in those who study it. And as the great Jacques Cousteau once said, the sea, once it casts its spell, holds one in its net of wonder forever. So as you leave this video, take a moment to think about how much life hides beneath the surface, how every ripple, every bubble, and every current carries a story of survival and balance. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the science of underwater life, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating discoveries about the world around us.